Good morning and welcome to the launch preview of the Footprint Intelligence and Nestlé Professional Sustainability Index 2021. The annual index is a guide to a more sustainable future. It identifies key trends and opportunities to help food service leaders build their business, develop a responsive strategy, benchmark good practice, and identify issues that need greater attention. It allows us as an industry to track how we are performing, the areas in which we're performing well, and those requiring urgent attention. Now, the order of today is that Amy Fetzer, Footprint's Head of Research and Analysis, will be presenting key insights and findings from the report, and this will be followed by a panel discussion with Emma Keller, Head of Sustainability at Nestlé UK and Ireland, Simon Galkoff, Group Procurement Director at the Big Table Group, Anna Schwab, Corporate Responsibility Manager at Sodexo UK and Ireland, and Emma Hill, Group Head of Food, Health, Safety and Environment at CH&Co. The report will land in your inbox tomorrow for the official launch, but today you'll have the benefits of key insights in advance. Now, before we get started, it gives me huge pleasure to welcome Emma Keller, who's going to open today's proceedings with a few thoughts before handing over to Amy. Emma, over to you.
Everybody, welcome to the preview of the 2021 Footprint Sustainability Index in association with Nestlé Professional. I'm Emma Keller, Head of Sustainability at Nestlé UK and Ireland, and I'm really pleased to be here with you today and to be part of the panel later on with some of our peers across the food service industry from Sodexo, Big Table Group and CH&Co. Firstly, I think it goes without saying that the world has changed dramatically over the past 12 months. And it's thrown the evolving nature of sustainability into ever sharp focus and changed the behaviour and the mindset of many. And the food service industry, like many others, has been challenged to address and respond to these changes, and no doubt will have to continue to do so. From ensuring the health and safety of our staff and customers to adopting new ways of working, responding to new consumer trends, changing government policies, the pandemic has given us all something to think about. And our task ahead is big. Our task really is to learn, to lead, to collaborate and to innovate as we look to build back better. So as you'll see today during this preview session, the Sustainability Index is jam-packed with input from food service experts and sector thought leaders who've really helped us to identify and map the key sustainability trends for the future. Footprint Intelligence and Nestlé Professional are hugely indebted to these experts who've generously given up their time and insights as part of our research process. And for us, one of the key things that the report really highlights, not only as an industry, but also as a business, is the need for continued collaborative partnerships as we move on our shared journey of sustainability. Whether that's on new innovative packaging initiatives, water stewardship, or reducing emissions, there's no escaping the fact that there are many climate challenges ahead. And when it comes to the road to net zero, nobody can go it alone. So here at Nestlé Professional, we know that sustainability is a long-term journey of continuous improvements towards radical transformation. It forms part of our everyday endeavours, and we look not only to respond to new trends, but also to be part of driving them. So much so that we as a company have committed to halving our greenhouse gas emissions by 2030 and achieving net zero by 2050, even while our business continues to evolve and to grow. But if we're to achieve this, and I think another thing that the report really highlights, is that we cannot look at single issues in isolation. The report makes clear that environmental, social and governance initiatives have never been more important to our investors and shareholders. And going forward, how we approach everything from tackling waste to getting ahead of changing policies will become an ever more crucial part of our sustainability mission to ensure our businesses not only survive, but thrive. And we genuinely believe that working together as a sector, we can make meaningful difference. And I really hope that this comprehensive sustainability index proves a useful tool in helping us all to achieve our goals, both as individuals and collective. So that's more than enough for me, and just thank you again for having me here today. And on that note, I'd like to hand over to Amy Fetzer, Head of Research and Analysis at Footprint, who will talk a little bit more about the findings of the report.
Hello, It's absolutely fantastic to be with you all here today. I'm really excited. I'm gutted I'm not with you in person, but it's my pleasure and my privilege to introduce you to the 2021 Index. I've got to start by saying a huge thank you to my colleague Siobhan O'Neill, who did an enormous amount of work on the report. As Emma mentioned, we speak to a great deal of people in the industry. We do interviews and surveys and attend a whole bunch of events and a whole lot of other kind of stuff to get to people at the coalface and find out what's going on. And Siobhan did a lot of that and helped pull it all together. So thank you very much to her. And of course, to you, Nestlé, we do appreciate your support, Nestlé Professional. It's wonderful to continue to be able to produce this report. I also want to say, if anyone is doing any social media, Sust Trends is a great hashtag to use so we can see all those comments in one place. First of all, though, I really want to start by saying a massive, the year we've all had, there's so many moments where you kind of sit there and go, oh my goodness, what is the point of it all? Well, hopefully today I'm going to give you some ideas about what the point could be, how, food service has a really important role to play in moving towards a more sustainable economy. And everyone here, everyone listening, everyone who reads the report has a massive ability and capacity to use your energy at work to make a really significant difference. We all can be part of the change that is needed. So I'm hopefully going to give you a bit of inspiration, and that the report will help identify those areas ripe for opportunity, to help you to see those wonderful sweet spots where sustainability helps provide business opportunity, but also those areas in need of urgent attention. This year we have 6 categories. According to our research, collaboration, communication, innovation have been massive driving forces. Technology has played a crucial role this year in helping businesses to pivot while tackling underlying issues such as food waste. Although the sector has been massively fighting for survival, people came together to make a difference. In terms of in previous reports, the one thing that's changed in terms of categories is sustainable diet has become the new name for our health and wellbeing section. And this is to reflect the massive growth in understanding and importance of sustainable diets as people get that understanding between the link of health and in the environment, and how the consequences of an unhealthy diet can put you at much greater risk of diseases like COVID. And also just about the big emphasis that food service can play in supporting customers switch to plant-based eating and sustainable diets. Energy and emissions is a big one this year that the sector really needs to focus on. I'm afraid to say food service as a general rule, whilst there are wonderful outliers, as a general rule, it's quite far behind the rest of the food industry and other parts of other sectors in terms of setting targets and actually reporting on what's going on. Policy and supply chain has had some amazing collaborations in the last year, and COVID itself has really opened people's eyes to the greater role the food industry and food service plays in people's lives and where it sits. So now the focus really has to be on building these stretching, meaningful targets that take whole kind of supply chain site and into company strategy and decision making, and really being transparent in that reporting. So I'm going to spend the next 15 minutes or so now going through the different sections, giving you a bit of, a few highlights. It's a massive report, as always. Do please share it, digest it, act on it, really do act on it. That is the point of getting all this wonderful insight and sharing it with you, is to help you make better decisions and capitalize on those opportunities to strengthen your business. So the first thing is about clients and consumers is food service has this massive opportunity to really embed them into your sustainability strategy and to incentivize green behaviours. There's some stats up on screen at the moment showing how this is a trend that's been continuing for a while, but it is consumers massively care about climate change. As that UN stat about 2/3 of people think climate change is a global emergency. So, and how this is translating itself into food service is that consumers want ethical brands, want not just ethical products. We've seen this in the drinks report that came out last year. It was the trend identified then. It's become even stronger. people, when we speak to people and through the Footprints Responsible Business Recovery Forum, the message coming through is that scrutiny from investors, customers and consumers is growing. As Ross Davies and Innocent said, sustainability must be a part of brand credentials. So the importance here is obviously that consumers have become much more adept at looking at people's brands, looking at their websites, looking at what they're doing on social media. We've really got to make sure it's transparent and the efforts are wide-ranging, meaningful, and make the difference that's needed. There's not just some sexy initiative. There's so many different levers we can use. We can use nudges, things like things that help appeal to customers' self-image or their desire to socially conform or to reset the default. But essentially, if your brand, by the options that you have on your menus, for example, by being more sustainable options, by being meter light, or by being healthier, and so the packaging options that you have, if the choices that you're helping to your consumers to make, if they're not helping people to improve their environmental and social footprint, you're in danger of disappointing 88% of them, because as you can see from that stat, 88% of consumers want brands to help them be eco and ethical. So as I said, we can use all this power we have at the disposal of foodservice to use marketing to nudge towards more sustainable behaviours. So getting people to recycle their takeaway packaging, making sure that's really, really clear, making sure incentive schemes to encourage people to reuse once that's possible. And also, as I said, using all the tools that we have in our marketing and psychology toolkit to really make sure that the dishes that appeal to people and that they order are the ones that have, the lightest footprint. One of the big things that's come out of COVID has been this massive increase in the use of technology. I mean, it's been amazing how people have rolled out systems that were supposed to take a year or two in a matter of days or weeks. There's a lot of great things that have come through. A lot of the pre-order apps have really transformed, the way businesses operate, but they have this sort of double benefit. They have these great direct routes to consumers with communications, but also they can help with things like customization, which again helps consumers feel that they're getting what they want, but that can help to massively reduce things like food waste because you're only producing what they're actually going to eat. And also making sure that within sort of schools environments and corporate environments, but potentially it could be rolled out in other places that you're not, having overproduction, because you can produce exactly what's needed and make sure you avoid unwanted sides. Things like loyalty apps can help incentivize green behaviours and choices, and there's a whole bunch of new things coming through. I think Panda was one that has all sorts of sort of systems and apps that help gamify and reward positive behaviour. There's also all sorts of other subtle ways that we can help consumers to do the right thing, with things like offering varied portion sizes, routinely offering doggy tags, or talking to customers about how hungry they are to make sure they order the appropriate amount of food and the right portion sizes to help people be healthier and greener and avoid things like food waste. Sustainable diets, as I said, it's even more of a trend than it ever has been, even though many restaurants and food service operations haven't been able to be open. The shift towards plant-based. I mean, this time, sort of last year before things shut down, it was wonderful walking around London and out and about, seeing all the amazing menus and meat-like offers that were open, especially. But obviously now, as we reopen, there has been a bit of a shift towards focusing on some of the customer favourites and some of the those top 10 dishes that will sell because people have had to streamline menus. But we have a massive responsibility to really work within the national obesity strategy. And all the new guidance that's coming through to really play a major part in the national food strategy to push for a healthier and more sustainable and environmentally friendly food provision going forward. I mean, remember, of course, we know that all the trends that appear in food service then translate through to people's lives. So we've really got to take that responsibility quite seriously. And there's been so many great stats, and Mintel has been showing stats for ages that there was a massive increase on flexitarian eating, and that whole plant-based eating is predicted to rise to 1.1 billion by 2024. There was a small dip in January January, but Mintel's quite sure that was just a little blip. And Deliveroo, again, you know, that's the fastest growing category in its app. So there's loads of work around sustainable diets and a lot of great work that brands are doing to reassure consumers, one, that it tastes great, but two, that the meat-free brands are genuinely more sustainable. So, for example, Nestle is working really hard to make sure that Garden Gourmet will be carbon neutral by 2022. Oaxaca's shifted to 50% veggie on their menu. IKEA's got 50% of meals will be plant-based by 2025. There's a great quote from Katia Simmons, a Nestle professional, when we spoke to her for the research, and she said, you know, it's vital that consumers see vegan and vegetarian dishes as delivering on taste, health, and sustainability, also while being great value for money. This is so that customers feel the money I'm paying for this is absolutely justifiable and reasonable. So that's something that we can all do to make a big difference. Unfortunately, our research found that quite a few people felt that the pandemic had negatively impacted on their sustainable diets efforts. But now, as we move towards the sector reopening and staying open, that is, you know, that is something that we really have a big role to play. And again, what's great about this is it builds on this idea that the pandemic made people more aware of what they eat and care more about the role that diet plays in their health. So we're really, you know, preaching to the converted in that sense, and it's a great way to connect with customers. In terms of health, obviously there is legislation coming which is going to require out of home to provide calorie labels. There's this massive uncertainty of, you know, making people streamline their menus, and that's great from a food waste perspective. It's wonderful to be looking at your menus and making sure that we got the things on there that people will choose and eat and won't lead to waste. But we do need to make sure that we've got, you know, those reduced portion options, the boosted veg, the lower calorie treats. Jane Jones, when we spoke to her from Assist SM, she said, you know, the pandemic doesn't stop the drive to improve health outcomes. If anything, it reminds us of the wider need to improve the health of the nation. The pandemic also, as I mentioned in the introduction, you know, there's been this, across the people we surveyed, you know, everyone agreed that, well, no, not everyone, most people agreed that there'd been a massive increase in collaboration. And a lot of that was across many different ways, but a lot of collaboration came together to help tackle some of the massive food inequalities that were uncovered by the pandemic, in terms of, you know, all those children on free school meals and the care packages and food banks. So there's been some wonderful partnerships facilitated, for example, by the Food Surplus Network, also Olio Too Good to Go. There's been loads of people. So these redistribution partnerships that were forged or built upon in the pandemic really need to be made part of business as usual. But of course, we want to have that waste hierarchy, always looking at reducing the waste in the first place, but when there is waste, making sure we've got good places for that to go to make sure it's as impactful in society as possible. The next section, leading on very neatly from talking about food, is food waste. So when we surveyed some of the senior leaders, 87% believed food waste is a priority. Now, before the pandemic, we had, you know, there was so much great action in this space. It was really gaining traction. And actually during the last year, more than 70 businesses have signed up to the food waste reduction roadmap and also taken advantage of training such as the Guardians of Grub 15-minute course and pilot, which is free. There's been so much free training, but we'll talk a bit about that later. But, you know, these new delivery scales and delivery models can help to reduce food waste. You know, as we've talked about, you know, a lot of people have been reducing their salad garnishes. You know, as I said, pre-ordering apps and education and corporate sites. Sodexo hasn't paused it. They're still, Anna might talk about this a bit later, but Sodexo is putting their Waste Watch powered by Lean Path at 3,000 sites this year. So that, you know, the public is really starting to build up on food waste actions in the home and outside of this. And I think the link between carbon and food is only going to get stronger with COP26 coming up later in the year. So, you know, they're becoming much more likely to ask, you know, what are you doing about food waste? So businesses need a policy and an action plan so they can answer what they're doing and why. And although I know staff are going to be tired coming back into businesses, but when we reopen, there is an opportunity to reopen right and make sure that tackling food waste is at the heart of operations, and also that things like food waste measurement is is set up, and that's just an ongoing thing. This is the thing that makes everyone so gutted. So yes, 68% of people said that COVID had increased the use of disposables and food packaging. It was something that you could tell really upset so many people, that many of the gains that had been made in reducing single-use pre-COVID had been set back by the pandemic. However, everybody also agreed that it was still a massive priority. And also, many people felt that, as you know, there was definitely a big, acknowledgement, and that everyone knew that once things were open and that we had a bit more certainty, that was going to be resolved. So it's not here to stay. Let's not let the gains that were made to be lost. One of the other things that's going to be a new thing for the industry going forward is that this massive rise in home delivery is going to mean that there's a massive increase in takeaway packaging. So it's really important for food service, when we're doing that home delivery, to ensure that, one, customers are able to dispose of their packaging appropriately through their curbside collection, and two, that restaurants include clear messages so customers understand and are motivated to dispose of containers responsibly. So I'm sure we've all ordered some takeout recently, but I mean, what I have been really interested to note is that actually sometimes I know, because of my work, that a packaging that I'm getting is actually quite sustainable because it's made from a recycled material, or I might know what's right to do with it, but as a consumer, it's not necessarily clear coming through in that delivery, what I am supposed to do to this packaging to make sure it goes in the right place. So there's a very big opportunity for food service to make sure we ensure consumers do the right thing when they get their food at home. Energy and emissions and natural resources. So this is a big area. It was a top 5 priority of those that we surveyed, but it really is the time to set tough, challenging, stretching science-based targets. I'm very sorry to say that food service is rather behind on this, and there was a lot of acknowledgement within the industry. Retailers have come together to support the BRC Climate Action Roadmap. We need, more action to happen like this in food service. The carbon reduction commitment looks like it's doing some good work, but now is the time to put aside our differences, really work out how we're going to get there, because it needs to happen. And as I said, compared to, even the drinks industry is much further ahead. You look at the major drinks brands, they've got very stretching targets. They've set their roadmap out, but not everyone has. And we just need to make sure that becomes the industry norm. And we need those bold, ambitious targets. And the great thing is that everybody, how can you get 100% in the survey? But we got on. Everyone agrees that it is time to collaborate. So you're all, singing to the same song sheet. It's fantastic. You just got to start talking. As I said, 83% said they will already do collaborate, or they'd be prepared to. 17% thought it would be hard to get competitors working together. Well, that actually means that, what's the opposite of that? 70, I can't count now. So 83, I think it's going to be okay. So you know what? We're all pushing on an open door here. That we really, there's some great quotes. The challenge, my challenge to you, is to use this amazing collaboration that came about as a pandemic and harness it for sustainability. Mark Davis from ISS said, "We want to work on meaningful carbon reduction targets, but we're struggling to measure. How do we as an industry measure to be sure that everyone is measuring in the same and consistent way?" So as I said, the Food Foundation is working with the Zero Carbon Forum to begin addressing some of these issues, but it's time to spread the investment costs and create a working group that can operate collectively. Vance Fairman-Smith from Green King said to us, "The whole hospitality sector has got to continue to step up. We need to collaborate more and invest more money, work together more. It's frustrating that as a sector, some areas are good, but on waste, carbon, utilities, water, we've got so much to do, and the solution is collaboration." Right. Very much moving on from this is the whole policy and supply chain piece, which again, the big thing that came through this year was the collaboration on so many different levels. But what pandemic did show was the fragility of the system. That kept coming up in all our different types of research, that for the suppliers, not having clearer visibility of what clients would want and when, and really makes everybody very vulnerable. And the whole kind of the need to work more on supporting each other and keeping that communication open. So we've got to really seize that chance to build back better and seize momentum for collaboration to collectively solve shared challenges. Again, there seems to be great recognition that there could be more collaboration that goes on. As Matt Garner from Sodexo said, caterers should work together. The market is big enough for us to work together and to support each other, share ideas and work collectively to ingrain sustainability into the food service business. Historically, the sector has been slower than other industries to work with competitors to tackle critical issues. Partnership working founded in the pandemic needs to be built upon to help companies truly be responsible businesses. I mean, the investors are also completely changing the conversations. If you look at Tesco, Tesco's changing the way it raises funds to tie them into its carbon targets. I mean, the whole market is changing, and there's also been more research that demonstrates the recognition of how building resilience into the supply chain really benefits the local economy. So, for example, some research from the Edinburgh Business School found that every £1 spent in food generated an additional £1.46 for the local economy. There's a lovely quote from Katja Simmons from Nestle, where she said, what we need to do as an industry and within our own businesses is we need to take a sort of test and learn approach, allow ourselves to fail and allow ourselves to get the opportunities to learn and do better next time. We aren't going to have the perfect solutions now, but we need to work together and be open about what we're doing and what's working and get to where we need to go. Things like B Corps can be wonderful shorthands for really helping this type of thing because they communicate a lot to consumers in one foul swoop. The last category is employees' health and well-being, and this has been such a big issue. When we surveyed people, it was one of the top 3 issues: employee health and well-being. They have been so hugely impacted by the pandemic. 97% of the people we surveyed said COVID had had a negative impact on staff mental health, and wonderfully, 80% of those we surveyed had stepped up to support staff, and they did all sorts of wonderful things: new communication routines, phone apps to help people feel connected, and well-being apps, training managers in mental health and first aid. There was all sorts of wonderful things that companies have done, but it is not going to go away. I mean, the mental health needs that employees and teams will have going forward are going to be significant. So we do need to continue to make sure that we give that support and look at those ways to help people in the times ahead. Another big thing that, of course, happened in the last year, which had a big impact on companies, was the Black Lives Matter movement, which was a huge wake-up call, with many in food service questioning themselves. Julian Hunt sort of described it quite well, kind of the mood, which was, he said, we found it, Julian Hunt, this is from Coca-Cola, Great Britain, he said, it was a wake-up call to look again at the business and ask, what are we really doing in this space? The result for Coca-Cola, European partners and many others in the industry was to launch equity programs to help understand what barriers Black and minority ethnic colleagues experienced in the business and to up diversity across the board. So, this is something that's really important. It's an important facet. It's always been a great thing about food service. It has been something that can really help so many people find gainful employment. So it's, again, something that we've got to make sure that we're identifying those barriers, looking for the unconscious bias, finding out how we can recruit more widely and support the development of all of the people working within the industry. Gender is an issue too, especially with women often more impacted by the pandemic, both in terms of furlough and potentially with childcare responsibilities. So again, we do need to, as an industry, be looking at our role and how our programs can be helping to support that. one of the great things was a lot of people had used furlough to encourage training, and I was super excited, as you can imagine, that 30% of them also had included sustainability training within their offer. I think you should have all made it, absolutely pushed it and told them to do it as much as, well, I know you couldn't tell them, but encourage them to do it as much as possible. But the great thing is that now that all that training's been made online and available to wider groups, let's keep it out there and make sure that that development opportunity continues to be available for everybody. And of course, we've got to make sure that we have fair contracts, pay and hours, especially as we're having these new situations emerge with things like dark kitchens and delivery models. So we've got to make sure that these people don't get left out of employee health and well-being. Now, as I said, it was a real whistle-stop tour, and there's so much I haven't been able to say, but we've got a fantastic panel to do next. So before, I just want to close by saying the key is definitely collaboration. You've done so much of it in the last year. You're amazing. Please, now just use it for sustainability. Think of what can be achieved. We need dramatic, intense change. So let's apply it to carbon. Let's work together. Let's really get, this action on sustainability. I know that you're all amazing. So please go out there and do it. And good luck. Now, onto the panel. We have the most amazing panel here. We have Emma Keller, who you already have met, the head of sustainability from Nestle UK and Ireland. We have Simon Galkoff, the group procurement director from The Big Table. Anna Swab, who's the corporate responsibility manager for Sodexo UK and Ireland, and Emma Hill, who's the group head of food, health, safety and environment from CH&Co. So I just got to get to the right screen to check I can see what's happening. So yeah, I'm really excited. I thought maybe if we could kick off with a question from on sustainable diets, because that is such a big trend at the moment. So maybe if we start with Emma Keller and we could talk about, because the whole, the report talks about the importance of sustainable diets and meat reduction. So how can we maximize our impact with our menus and our food service influence? Maybe we start with Emma and then go through to Anna and other Emma.
Absolutely. Thank you, Amy. Well, I think we, as you pointed out, we absolutely need to see health and sustainability as two sides of the same coin, which is really where the term kind of sustainable diets has really come to the fore. And I think when we all think about it initially, it's all about, well, we just need to reduce meat. And while that absolutely is a really core part of it, it's got to be making it healthier at the same time. We can't just be substituting in lots of different other things that make these products less healthy. So really looking at it in the round, how do we bring health and sustainability together? I think we've seen consumers are really starting to engage more about where ingredients are coming from. So looking at provenance, how we bring that to life through our menus by showing the story of where they're coming from. So we've got a huge opportunity in the food service sector to start to communicate through our menus by, as you've talked about, meat-like menus, showing where ingredients are coming from, talking about how products are made, etc. So a huge opportunity for us to embrace if we're going to see this trend continue.
And Anna, how are you've got your green and lean menus and you've done lots behind the scenes. How are you, going to make these sustainable diets a reality and help make sure that consumers actually make the right choices, and choose those dishes?
Yeah, well, I think as an industry, we have a really big role to play in educating our clients and consumers about the necessary changes that we all need to make for the health of the planet. I think we as an industry need to be bold. When we look at our emissions as a business, we know it's the food that we buy and sell that we will need to change. We need to reduce the amount of animal protein on our menus, but we need to take everyone on that journey with us. And that's something, it's sometimes hard when you hear comments like, oh, you're only doing this to reduce the cost or save money. So I think the story behind the change needs to be really strong and compelling, and that's the biggest role we have as an industry. It's convincing people to try something new by making beautiful food from alternative protein sources, by positioning it on the top of the menu or as the first thing that you see when you approach the food counter. It's educating our employees to be able to sell it with real conviction. I think, your report, and Amy, you referred to it as well. It's about all of those gentle nudges that really help, those will help our consumers make the right choices, and that really is our role to play.
And Emma, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think it is the education piece as to what's good, if you like, and what's bad. I mean, we're looking at doing carbon labelling across menus and standardised products as well, to give that information to consumers so they can make that informed choice, and they can see the impact of that ham and cheese sandwich or whatever it happens to be, that they can see the impact that they're actually having long term. So yeah, it's very much about the education piece and showing people and being transparent at the end of the day.
Simon, did you have anything to add from the high street perspective?
Yeah, well, I mean, first to say, Amy, thanks for your presentation, which I thought was fantastic. It was kind of really, really insightful. So thanks for sharing that with us all. From our point of view, you know, our brands, so our main brands are La Iguanas, Bella Italia and Cafe Rouge. And really what we're about is sourcing great quality ingredients and ethically sourcing them. And we're very focused on our guests and what our guests require, and that does vary by brand. But really for us, it's about giving kind of a good selection on the menu and letting customers choose. So giving them that choice, but making that available to them.
Great. And what about, so we've got a question here from Richard Fine, who wants to know, why is the industry adopting compostable packaging so slowly? So by the way, you can put in the YouTube chat any other questions that you have. So this one came in from Richard Fine. So he's asking, why is the industry adopting compostable packaging so slowly? Now, this is a kind of an interesting hot potato. Who would like to make a stab at that one first?
Yeah, I'm happy to go. I think it's about making. I think we're trying to reduce single-use plastics, right? So that's kind of the North Star, if you will. And I think, what do we replace it with? And that's where we really need to think carefully about the whole circular economy piece. I think the problem with compostable packaging is that there isn't across the country solution that does the full thing for us. It's that piece, but it's also the piece about educating consumers again, because if it looks like plastic and it feels like plastic, you're more likely to put it in the recycling bin for plastic. But actually, then that just creates another problem, because you're contaminating your recycling bag. So it's complicated. It's not as simple as swap one thing with another. There needs to be a full solution for it to work properly. Otherwise, you're just moving problem from one place to another.
So this could be potentially, because one of the other things we wanted to discuss was the role of the technology to reach consumers on sustainability. So, you know, I talked a bit about in the presentation about pre-ordering apps, but also how they could be a way to communicate messages on what to do with your takeaway packaging at the end. You know, is this something that people are exploring about sustainability messages and technology?
Happy to jump in there. Yeah, I think we know technology has a huge role to play in this, and we know it's going to be a massive part of how consumers make choices going forward. So definitely there's lots to be explored there. I mean, we're in partnership at Nestlé with the Too Good To Go app, which is looking at how to redistribute food waste so it can match up consumers with distribution to make sure that food isn't going to waste. We're looking into the future at what's to come. So we know there's amazing technologies out there like intelligent labeling that can tell you when a product is about to go off. So again, it can start to help to reduce food waste and issues like that. So there's absolutely going to be a role to play. But we need to make sure we don't see it as the silver bullet to fix all our challenges, because it's obviously very skewed towards younger people who are more easily ready to use technology compared to older generations who might not be. So we need to make sure we get the balance of both using technology where we can optimize, but not replacing other education tools and human interaction as well.
Great. What about in terms of, you know, we talked about policy and supply chain. Simon, there was quite a lot about collaboration. And you know, how can we harness that momentum and really get policy and supply chains working together to tackle sustainability challenges?
Yeah, I mean, this has been a kind of really interesting time. I've never known kind of a time like this where kind of the business has been closed for such a long period of time. And what that's really done is, I think, in a sense, it's kind of helped collaboration, because businesses have had to collaborate together to reopen and to grow within kind of such a difficult time in the industry. So whether we look at kind of how we collaborate with our suppliers, one of the things that we found, because of the pandemic, we've had to reduce the number of suppliers we're going to be working with going forward. So again, that gives us a more closer, a more strategic relationship with those suppliers, which from a sustainability point of view is only going to be a good thing. There's collaboration within the industry as well, and that was happening kind of year before the pandemic. And I think a really good example of that is kind of the European chicken commitment, where we've been working with Compassion and World Farming, and quite a number of companies across the industry have been collaborating together like I've never seen before. And the benefit is absolutely huge, because when we put our volume together and go at it in as one voice, what we can achieve is really kind of quite astounding. And I think that is only going to continue. And then when I kind of think about kind of, again, how we work with our suppliers, some of the platforms we use and continue to use. So we use the Authenticate platform to map our supply chain, to survey our suppliers, particularly from an ethical point of view. And again, I kind of can see all of that continuing. So I think kind of collaboration will remain important and will probably grow more so than it ever has done before.
And Anna, one of the big things, of course, that that came through in the research is that there not that many food service businesses have put out targets out there and actually started publishing their figures. Sodexo is somebody who has done that. What can we do to make this the industry norm and to get people working together on shared metrics?
Yeah, I think the carbon reduction target is really big for us in terms of our Better Tomorrow 2025 commitment and corporate responsibility strategy. We've got a target of 34% carbon reduction against the 2017 baseline. It's been approved by the Science Based Targets, and it puts us firmly within the boundaries of the Paris Agreement. And I guess, from the research we've done internally, we know that the bulk of our emissions is in scope 3, and that's going to be the same across the industry, really. Given the nature of the industry we're all in, a massive proportion of that is going to come down to the food that we buy and we serve. So we know what ultimately needs to change. It will vary slightly depending on the demographics and the geography. But what's absolutely clear is that we need to be eating less meat, and we need to be wasting less food. And I think, in a way, from where I'm sitting, tackling food waste is almost easier, because you won't find people telling you that you need to be wasting more, right? So it's about figuring out what the solution is, but we know we all recognize the problem. So in a way, that battle is already half won. I think the true challenge will come with changing our eating habits, because food is such an emotive thing for all of us. I read somewhere that we eat with our hearts and not with our minds. And so I think it's that change of heart that we all need to work together to inspire and encourage. And I think that, as an industry, everyone starts setting those targets, that's just going to come through as something that we all need to get behind and work together.
Perfect. And I know, Emma, you wanted to say something about food waste as well.
Yeah, so we're looking at various different food waste solutions, and again, partnering with people like Olio and that as well for redistribution of the food waste. But it really is a difficult situation. It's the education piece, again, to your team members, to your consumers about, if you're taking too much food and you're not actually going to eat that, don't take it in the first place. So also from a consumer perspective, it's looking at making sure that people aren't overeating, you're giving the right foodstuffs, you're making sure people are aware of what's going on. But reduction of food waste is a given nowadays. With the food service industry, it has to happen. We can't just ignore the fact that that is there. And it's trying to minimise it as much as possible and looking at the big areas where you're having that food waste and making sure that you're controlling it.
Perfect. And Simon, did you want to add anything about food waste?
Yeah, I mean, food waste kind of prior to pandemic was kind of, really big focus area for us. And it was an initiative we developed in the business, and we hadn't really focused on it before. So what we did was we worked very closely with RAP, and we signed up to the food waste reduction roadmap. And what we were really trying to understand is what is driving food waste in our business. And it was something we had kind of no view of it at all. We picked about half a dozen pilot sites across our different brands, and working with RAP, we did a full analysis of what was causing the waste, whether it was back of house or whether it was kind of, food waste from guests, product they were leaving on their plate. And that was kind of the major part of what we discovered. That was kind of the major part of the food waste, which in a sense was kind of reassuring, because we knew we had our efficiencies working correctly back of house. But then on the other hand, you kind of question, well, why are people leaving food on their plate, kind of good quality product? And I think it was a combination of kind of portion sizes in some cases maybe being too large, garnishings that actually people didn't really want, but they looked pretty on the plate. And one of the ways we tackled that was, a good example was in Café Rouge with breakfast. We actually printed on our menu that if there's anything as part of the breakfast you don't want, because we saw some people leaving tomatoes, some people leaving mushrooms. If you don't want that, tell us, and we won't put it on your plate, so we won't waste it. And that was actually really quite powerful. So a lot of learnings that we've got, which we're then going to kind of roll out across the business as we start to reopen. I think probably other thing just to mention, kind of we work kind of closely with Food Share, and we've donated a lot of food to them from our depots, when product has been, it would inevitably be wasted. And we obviously try and reduce that as much as we possibly can. But again, giving it to a good cause if it does happen, and Food Share has been our partner for that.
And I know that everyone is going to find reopening, those people coming off furlough are going to find it different. I mean, the chefs I've been speaking to who've got their teams back in the last few weeks have sort of said how they've noticed how they're making mistakes they would never normally make, how tired people are, they're just not, not used to it all. So even, can we still expect people to be really savvy on food waste? Can we expect them to start measuring and doing the things that help make the invisible visible? Because, I want them all to do it.
Yeah, I think it's a really good challenge, Amy. We have to be respectful to our colleagues when they're coming back, because a lot of our colleagues haven't worked for a year. This is really challenging, and to expect them to pick up and do exactly what they were doing before, is really unrealistic, and is actually a little bit disrespectful to them, I think. So we've got to bring them back in. We've got to retrain them. And yes, things like food waste, we've got to kind of reintroduce, but we have to do things at the right time. But there are other things we can do and things that we have done. So kind of part of the pandemic, we've really reduced down the sizes of our menus, and that's helped us to operate more efficiently back of house, which is really important when we have to maintain social distancing. So actually having smaller menus, and I think you alluded to it in your presentation, Amy, should reduce food waste, because we'll be selling more of the popular dishes, so higher volume going through, less food waste. So I think there's kind of a positive consequence to a lot of the things that we do.
Yeah, so just got to try and make sure that all the changes that we're bringing in because of COVID, that we look at the sustainability impact and try and choose the ones that meet both needs. A complicated balancing act, which I'm sure you're all doing very, very well. Now, I just wanted to have got another question coming in here. So, has anyone got any good thoughts about the Internet of Things and how food service might be adapting the use of this type of technology to reduce waste and improve food safety? That's a question from Jane Jones from Assist. Anyone got any thoughts there? Oh, no. Okay, well, this is quite interesting. So in terms of from the research that we did, so in previous pieces of research that we've done around energy efficiency, for example, there was a lot more chat around the Internet of Things and having dishwashers that could say when they were out of detergent, or that needed servicing, or that was fridges that were about to break. So definitely from the footprint research bank, I would say that in terms of equipment, there's a lot of scope for the Internet of Things. But in terms of for this research, it didn't come up very much. What did come up was the introduction of technology to help with home delivery, or with pre-order apps, or kind of changing delivery methods, and that's had massive impacts, as I said, with opening the communication channels with consumers, whilst also making sure that we are more efficient and tackle things like food waste. So I hope that answers that. So another question I wanted to talk about was, as Simon, you were talking about the employee health and well-being. This is such an important area. They've had such an intense time in the last year, and as we say, we must be respectful. So I hope my energy for encouraging them to be sustainable wasn't taken, and I wanted to ask too much of them. But yeah, so how can we help as employees to feel part of the solution? Because as we know, those stats I showed at the beginning, the UN stats, people personally really care, or many of them care. So, oh, there's a background noise. Somebody? Anyone? So how can we make sure that that employees feel empowered to bring those values to work and help make a difference? Simon, do you want to start with that?
Sure, and I wasn't suggesting for a second, Amy, you're being disrespectful with many of the people, so just to set the record straight there. So engagement is a kind of a really important part of what we do, and during this kind of whole furlough time, we've had to find ways of engaging with our colleagues and keeping them kind of in touch with the business, which can be quite a challenge. We're very lucky that we were kind of one of the early companies to pilot Workplace, which is from Facebook. And our colleagues remain kind of really very engaged through the Workplace platform. And we've kind of continued that throughout their kind of whole furlough period. And they've been set all sorts of challenges, which they've done at home, like baking things, cooking things, and then they photograph them and put them on the channel. So that has been really, really good. But from the sustainability point of view, one thing we've identified as a board is that we need to engage kind of the wider base of colleagues more in our sustainability journey. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to kind of share with them kind of all our CSR initiatives, and kind of really get them kind of very involved in it and get feedback from them as to kind of what they want to see. Because for us, there's kind of three really important stakeholders: colleagues, absolutely, and kind of new colleagues. People will choose if they want to work for a company based on their CSR agenda, and we're very aware of that. Our guests, kind of key stakeholder, and our investor, another very key stakeholder.
And Emma, Keller, do you have anything to add to that about how you make sure that your teams feel that they have the agency to kind of implement ideas and really make a difference?
Yeah, I just wanted to agree with Simon there. I think we're absolutely seeing that staff are increasingly looking to be part of a responsible company, one that's actively contributing and playing a part in driving a more sustainable planet. So we're definitely creating space to give our colleagues the opportunity to bring those ideas. And I think actually, but back to your previous question, that's what we need to really do, is harness the fact that all our staff are consumers themselves who've either been stuck at home for the last year, seeing more of their food waste in their bins or their packaging mounting up, and really starting to think about, how do I change this both in my personal life as well as my professional one? So providing that space to harness those employees' ideas is going to be absolutely key. We've also done quite a lot of work in the recent years to train our employees to be mental health first aiders, so that we can all work together to deal with some of the challenges that the pandemic has shone a spotlight on, and make sure our employees are equipped to be able to deal with some of the challenges that we're yet to face.
Yeah, and especially with customers not always making it easy for people by wearing their masks when they need to, or being patient with delays, and there's so many different, so such a different world. I mean, I found it surprising how many comments when we reopened last summer, how many people kind of expected things to be normal, even in the first week of reopening, and kind of were like, oh, it's terrible queues, sort of going, well, of course, like it's social distance kitchen. So yeah, they will need a lot of support. Is there anything, Anna, that you think that we can do to kind of to help going forward, with all the uncertainty of sites being open or being closed, or how we can manage our employees' mental health?
Yeah, I think that this is such an important question. And if we go back to who's actually going to be influencing the customers and the consumers to make the changes that we all need to be making, it's not going to be me, it's going to be our frontline employees. And so it's going to be those people who serve the coffee and the food every day, and they really need to be brought into the agenda. They need to understand the impact that they're making every day and how it contributes to the big picture. And I think generally people care, people want to know. The WRAP Food Waste Action Week that happened a few weeks back was a great example of that for us, because we had amazing internal engagement around it. It just shows that people want to know more and they want to be doing the right thing. And it's for me, if I think about it, it's about empowering them to make their own decisions and to come up with their own initiatives. We have a colleague who installed a crisp packet recycling point at their site, or a site that is now collecting eggshells and converting them into natural pesticide for their on-site garden on the back of the deployment of the wastewater powered by Lean Path, which is our food waste reduction program, because they figured out, okay, well, this is suddenly this whole new type of waste that we didn't know we were creating, that we can now visually see that it's there. So what are we going to do about it? And I think it's about enabling those small-scale initiatives and encouraging grassroots movements that will create the biggest impact.
That sounds brilliant. And what about Emma Hill? Do you have any thoughts around employee engagement and empowering them to know that they can, creating that supportive environment where they feel they can suggest things and make, have ideas?
Yeah, we run our planet meetings sort of every other month, and we have a strategy that goes with that, and we include our employees within that. So we have ambassadors that work across the company that look out for all those great sustainability ideas that people may be doing, and we then look at whether we can deploy that across the business, or whether we do that within different sectors that we work in. So it really is about being inclusive, and we're doing welcome backpacks, that type of thing, that are also not only just looking at the COVID aspect of coming back into the business, but also the sustainability aspects that we want to target and that we want to do, but also getting their ideas on board as well. So we run exec calls and things like that, where we ask people for their ideas of what they want to bring on board. And then we look at what we can put into the business and make those change and bring everybody along on that journey.
And what about young people? Because obviously they have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic, and food service is typically a starter job for many people, many of whom then of course go on to make it their career. But what are the opportunities to kind of be a force for good in society to help those young people gain employment and opportunity?
It's working a lot. I mean, we work a lot with Springboard, Kickstart schemes, all that type of thing, to bring people back into the industry and show that, the industry is not dying just because of COVID. There's plenty of opportunity that's coming on board and is available. We work a lot through apprenticeship schemes. We run academies, anything to incentivize people to come back into the industry and show that we are alive and kicking and will be here to continue going forward. And it's really kind of that incentivizing schemes to make sure that they've got their fair pay, the hours and everything else that we can give them, and bring them again along on that journey to make sure they're part of everything that we do.
And Anna, do you have any comments to make there about sort of incentivize apprenticeships, or how we can support young people into employment?
Yeah, same as Emma, really. We're providing apprenticeships. We're looking into all of the different ways that we can incentivize young people specifically to join the business. We are supporting Springboard to 2022, which is a great program that's designed really by Springboard to give us as the industry the space to focus on the current challenge of rebuilding after the COVID and after reopening, while Springboard ensures that there is a skilled and engaged talent pipeline of 10,000 young people who are going to be ready to join the industry when we're all reopened. I think for Springboard, we have a long-standing relationship with them. Our CEO is one of their trustees, and we engage with their ambassador programs. I guess we're also the lead sponsor of Future Chef, so that's the early intervention at schools and career stages to advise and support young people with an interest in the sector, because I think it's really important to recognize that this is, as an industry, this is our key pool of talent that we want to be attracting into the business.
And Emma and Simon, Emma Keller, I wondered if we could maybe finish on, I mentioned the Black Lives Matter and the massive kind of how that opened so many food service businesses' eyes to the fact that although they may be doing some work in diversity, perhaps it wasn't always working, and they know there's sort of things like unconscious bias. Perhaps you might have something we could close on talking about how we can make sure that we provide opportunity for all, and only work on diversity and inclusion and gender, perhaps. Emma, do you want to start?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's no doubt that last year shone a spotlight on many things, including the huge issue of diversity and inclusion. And we know we've got a journey to go on. We're doing quite a lot at the moment in Nestlé. We've got a task force working on it. We're really trying to bring different voices to the fore, make sure that people are being heard. We're looking at our recruitment programme and how we get rid of things like unconscious bias and provide opportunities more broadly. There isn't a one-size-fits-all solution for this, and it's something we all need to embark on the journey. We need to learn from each other. I really think our sector has a huge opportunity here to step up, open our doors and provide those opportunities. As Anna said, we absolutely are built on, we need youth and young people coming in. We also need a diverse and inclusive workforce if we're going to continue to survive.
Simon, did you want to?
Yeah, I think Emma spoke about that really well, actually. I mean, it's really important for us as a business, and kind of our HR team are focusing on it very closely. We have a diverse workforce. It's really important. We have a diverse customer base, and kind of diversity and inclusion is absolutely there, the top of the agenda for us. I'm not sure I can really say any more than that.
Well, it is. Well, listen, it's been absolutely fantastic hearing all your different perspectives. Thank you so very much for your time and insights after this morning. Even I'm away with myself this morning. So thank you very much for those insights and for telling us some great sort of real nuggets from the coalface of how you are doing key things like, as you say, integrating sustainability, empowering your employees, tackling things like food waste. I love all the food waste tackling. It's been absolutely brilliant, and please, we wish you the very, very best of luck in the next week and coming weeks. But I just wanted to sort of to end the session today just by saying the thing that really comes through in our research is this absolute need to take the energy and the swift and amazing collaborative action that was applied to the pandemic. We've got to apply that sustainability. It is such a bigger challenge. The climate crisis, the time is running out. We've only got 9 years to get to 2030 and meet those sustainable development goals. We've got COP26 coming up the end of the year. There's some really good things that will help drive that momentum. The industry has shown how incredible it can be, how the unthinkable can happen so quickly, how readily people can embrace change, both within their working practices and everything. We know that people are tired, but we also know that the wonderful thing about doing things to tackle the climate crisis and to make things more equitable and more fair is that people are genuinely inspired by that. So it makes people respond very differently. And if we can do things in a way that harness that enthusiasm and that motivation, then we can absolutely solve it, and without putting pressure on our people. So my challenge to you all is go out there. If you haven't got your carbon targets, set them, get it sorted. The industry really needs to act on this and catch up with everybody else. We also, have got such great action happening on food waste. Let's pick up that momentum. Let's pick up the momentum that we had on disposables, on plastics, all these different things. The industry is absolutely done so many good things, and loads of people, stopped, took stock, set out their strategies in this period of what do we call it? Anyway, during the pandemic, and when businesses maybe did have closures and time to reflect. Obviously, everybody's situation was different, but I absolutely sort of implore you to please go out and use the learnings of the report. Do read it, digest it, act on it. But we all have the power to make such a positive difference out in food service, and by influencing not only our own operations but our consumers, and making changes that ripple through into their behaviours in the home. So I implore you to use that energy for good. So thank you very, very much for coming today. I hope you've enjoyed it, and do tweet us trends and get in touch if you have any other comments.